Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host for today, Simon Hodgkins, and today I'm joined by Yuanyuan Zheng. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show. You're very welcome to VistaTalks.
Thank you, Simon. A very big pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to a conversation later. Myself, as a background as procurement specialist, I was also very much leading organization globally, including 19 years in a care world, and been working with direct product, ocean transport in various different procurement sectors. Currently, I am on my own as a consulting work with a couple of the firms and experts and looking into supply chain management, procurement management, and ESG agenda. And personally, I'm very passionate in working and help people to be withstand their well-being in workplace.
Well, that's great. Thanks very much indeed, Yuanyuan, for giving us that. And, it's a pleasure to have you here. I wanted to ask you a few questions, if I can, just to kick things off, because you've had a great career so far. And as you say, very involved in, I suppose, procurement, worldwide procurement at that. And it's led to working with many teams, I suppose, global teams, billion-dollar portfolios at companies like, I'm going to mention a few here, IKEA, part of the Inca Group, Stanley Black & Decker, for example. These are brands that are known around the world at this stage. You must have learned a few lessons along the way when it comes to building these worldwide teams and also working across high-performing teams in the world of procurement for organizations. Could you maybe unpack that a little bit for us? Because it's not as straightforward as it sounds.
No, absolutely. It's multiple layers. And I want to mention one word, which is very popular word nowadays in our work and life, which is resilience, right? So, and I think that I would use these words to sort of trying to summarize my journey in the procurement supply chain in these 24 years, including really recent 10 years, 5 years, especially after COVID. But I think on the individual and organizational level, I've found usually this usually sits on the very practical foundations when it comes to resilience and before performing team under the stress. And the first, I would say it's like really clearly understand the value, right? So, and I think for individual and teams, really needs to fully understand why we exist as a team and why procurement department exists and what value we bring, and also where our value matters. Because in the stressed process and pressure situations, this recognition helps us a lot stand up for what we need to stand for. Right? So, and not easy to be hit back because of the hardship of the difficulties. Second would be the data, definitely. I wouldn't skip that part, yeah. Nowadays, the data even more strongly built because of the AI system, software. I would say the data will bring clarity than ever, right? Going forward, also that helps us to build resilience out of, kind of a human conversation. Here we have data will bring the insight. The third, I would say, especially in the company, in the organization, procurement generally are among many other, stakeholders. So the decision governance and also scenario capabilities, right? Especially when you have the difficulties, setbacks, even that we need decision fairly quick in many of our situations and have no time to find out who's going to make the decision. So the governance needs to be there and updated, and also ability to build a scenario, because it cannot be only one possibilities in the current supply chain time. You need to have ability to see multiple possibilities and to act to it quicker. The last not least, I would say it's kind of a mindset that we highlight in our organization, saying that, it's good to talk about bad news, and probably it's important to, definitely more important, talk about bad news. Certainly we celebrate good news, but bad news means that we could work on that, right? That's also sometimes our values stand out for that. So it's not a blame or shame or stress type of feelings when bad news comes, but simply that's opportunities. And in my year of the career, especially, heading the ocean transport during COVID years, the disruption actually is more than enough. So we almost have reset all these four parameters in our work and even update some of them. And I think that really helped us, on me, by leading and deliver the work during such a disruptive time.
But I wanted to ask you about that because at IKEA, you sort of championed that sustainability, didn't you? You drove really, I suppose, an industry first when it comes to sort of ocean freight emissions as well, and transparency around that, I should say.
Mm.
Could you maybe tell me a bit more about that? Because it's such an important piece for the work that you do, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I would, regarding a little bit, I think I would probably give a kind of a milestone, but they start from, I would say, the strategy, yeah, and where we actually are heading to will input us how we go there. So we have the strategy from for the 2030 decarbonization challenge goals in the transport sectors. We also have, as a company, has like we've committed to be a zero emission cargo owner by 2040. That was a very aggressive and ambitious commitment. But from there, we said, okay, what does it mean for us as a procurement, as category? And we understand we must translate them into the language of procurement. In practical terms, is we need to embed these goals or translate them and embed it into our yearly tender process. Yeah, and this is where the decision, commercial decision, and intention comes with our stakeholders, especially carriers. And then we said, okay, if we want to do that, what do we need? We need data. We need granular data. We need the real data, and we don't have that. And the data does not sit at our hands. Even in the market, there's not so much resources of that data. So we need to build the transparency with our state partners. That comes with transparency challenges and agenda. And well, I would say there's a four things we did right in a way when I look back is we really intentionally communicate multiple times that we do it, we will do it, we will do it this way. Not many people love to hear that, especially in the moment the market is not welcome this approach. But we keep on doing this and consistent communicate, talk about it, speak for it whenever it's needed. And secondly, we said, let's build some internal task force. Is we need to have some to start from somewhere. And we need to start from internal because external is not easy to drive before our internal commitment is here. So task force is built collaboratively with ourselves, expertise of ESG, expertise of the finance, expertise of technology. And after a while, the collaboration started with carrier. And we got the chance to receive the data we want with quality, with granularity that we want. So that we are ready to embed into our, commercial process. So that's a, kind of a step by step and chop the big elephant into the smaller ones, and then we can handle them one by one. And overall, I would say the IKEA is a kind of I would say, super responsible company and also one of the largest shipper. And believe that we have is that what we do will impact the bigger world beyond us. So this actually drives so much when we are doing this doing this work.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you say that, before you can impact the wider world, you've got to get the internal team and structures and strategy right internally before you can go out and start influencing stakeholders and having that positive impact on the wider world. And of course, your work there is well known. And thank you for sharing that insight to us. Now, I know you're doing a lot of consultancy at the moment too, but I wanted to ask you particularly about your work with the Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies. And the reason I want to ask you that is because you're sort of bringing this forward-thinking lens to global supply chains. You were mentioning, weren't you, that getting people to be more transparent and the importance of data and data has come up a couple of times since you've been speaking. When you look at it through your own lens of the Institute for Future Studies in Copenhagen, what trends are you seeing that you think will reshape procurement, global sustainability strategies over, say, the next 5 or 10 years? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's a huge question. Thank you for that. I've really think about it, and I've been thinking about it for really some time. But before I talk about trend, I actually would love to take the opportunity to clarify several things that's very important in this subject. And when I really deep learned the Copenhagen Institute of the Future Studies is a strategic foresight, is actually the approach itself to help the business to explore, anticipate, and prepare better for the future. So because the world is no longer stable, never will be, and it's volatile, anxious, non-linear. So foresight in this case is not going to predict anything for us. So also I say here is, and trying to say is, there is no kind of particular trend or particular possibility. It's a multiple. It will be continued to be multiple, several more layers in front of us. So this approach is really, help us to look at possible multiple futures in front of us at a certain moment. So, and this can change over the years. So when it comes to supply chain and the procurement, even sustainability, I actually want to highlight some certain behavior or mindset when navigate the trend impact is in the past procurement. I take my example. We have forecast 5 years ahead. We have data. Every year we're going to do this and that, couple of percentage plus. And we make plan for that. We make strategy. It seems like things are going to be like this, which just has been like this in the past. And going forward, no. There's no chance the company give you a forecast and they're going to stick with that. So what does it mean for us? Strategic foresight helps us to have to build several scenarios of the future or several scenarios of the forecast in this case, and to act to that. For example, sustainability, right? So it's certainly a long-term and future things. And the foresight approach also is like makes people to look at the present through the lens of the future, right? Because the traditional way is that we look at the future through the lens of now, based on what we know. Okay, what I'm gonna do next 2 years, 10 years, 5 years. But the strategic foresight is to look at the present, what to do, our action strategy, but in the lens of the future. That's a very changed the way of look at sustainability. It is a future topic. If we couldn't do that, it will be a short-term losses and gains and cost and tension and whether it's what is the ROI. So I don't know if I answered exactly the question about trend, but I definitely want to elaborate as a behavior and a mindset. to handle the trend, but probably not the trend itself. I would like to share. It's just the too many trend.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the answer because
Yeah,
it's complex, I think is what we're
it
saying.
is.
It's not
Yeah,
straightforward. And
no.
obviously, as somebody who's been leading in this area, I wanted to ask you about that complexity.
Hmm.
You mentioned sort of global instability, and I wanted to sort of bring in a little bit about geopolitical tensions, although I don't want to go down a political rabbit hole. But at the time of recording, we've seen Canada and China, for example. We've seen the UK Prime Minister visiting China. You know, there's talks of trade deals at the time of recording. And of course, we have global tariffs looming in other parts of the world. So it is complicated. And I wanted to ask you about that because many companies are grappling with these challenges, but you've worked across cultures and markets, from China, Sweden, Switzerland, etc.
Hmm.
How have these sort of diverse experiences, have they actually influenced your own leadership style, your own
Hmm.
approach to global
Hmm.
collaboration?
Absolutely. It's in an enormous big way. And it remind me so much in my journey. And yes, I mean that cross-cultural leadership is a super big topic for me. And I grown, as you see, I grew up in China, deeply influenced by the Asian Eastern philosophy and traditions such like Confucianism and Taoism. And in this case, leadership is kind of a decisive format, and leader expected to tell and expect to decide by themselves, and people will follow. Sort of, yeah. That's how the environment, human environment or leadership environment, was built. I but I want to have a disclaimer here. Says everything I say. Everything I say is not trying to represent the whole culture, right? So it's really my experience. It's really kind of my little reflections. Hopefully, it would spark thinking. That's it. Because everything is shifting and changing, right? So I couldn't say China is still in the same exactly way, right? But I came from those environments, and I was very successful in my first stage of the career. Then I moved to Sweden and things happened, right? So I have really wake up moment. The first year of the leading European Asian teams, I got a really quite poor leadership survey result. It was a big shock and wake up call. And I ended up finding out when I really, really humbly listened what really went wrong. And people told me that you feels like for us like a general, right? Like a commander, right? So it's like put things up to here and that's it. So they're not really appreciate this and not feel comfortable with it. And that's just totally important for me to hear that. That actually shaped my way of leading, I would say, multiple cultural based teams to really understand their cultural needs, communication, be a coaching mentor and decisive leader in anytime is needed in a different setting and context. And then when it comes to Switzerland, it's a really kind of deep, typical Western world in my eyes. I would say here is more directive and is more explicit. So it's also challenged my assumption that how the Western leadership style is also it's different than in Sweden and Switzerland. So I would say overall, I said probably there's no kind of a style would fit for all, absolutely. But me, I need to keep like observing, conversation, understanding. The one important thing is I have to let go of some of my personal preference and to truly be aware of that and let it go and be kind of embracing diversity. And I mean, that's really, I paid time for lessons and I see that effectiveness when doing that. The team are, kind of their life, right? In making the work together. So yeah, I hope this gives some
Yeah, it is
interesting
interesting
story.
because you're not only mentioning obviously the change in geographies, but the change in culture, the
Mm.
expectations, and the assumptions that sometimes are completely wrong or need adjusting, or there's you're saying sort of a bit of a reality wake up call maybe in certain
Mm.
areas.
Mm.
And it isn't the same, right? And I think people that
No.
work internationally, you kind of realize that you can act globally, but sorry, you can think globally, but you must act locally, and you have to
Oh
understand
yes.
the local nuance, the language, the
Yeah.
culture, the
Yeah.
exceptions, the norms,
Yeah.
etc. And that real
Yeah.
nuance becomes important. And obviously, taking time to adjust to that, to understand that, but still being able to deliver the results, which is what I want to come on to next. Because ultimately,
Absolutely. Mm.
companies, the results, the bottom line is you've got this big tension, particularly now, between cost and sustainability, right? Whether
Mm.
that's through
Mhm.
shipping or tariffs or increased costs globally. Um, what's your take or what's your view on how businesses can maybe look at balancing those short term pressures with their
Mhm.
longer term, I suppose, environmental responsibilities?
Mm. Mm. Well, that's a classic. That's a classic question in on this subject. Yeah. Um, I think this connect with foresight as well, but I will start from one reflections which had these years. In the company, in the organization, in the business, we have product design, we have sales, we have marketing, supply chain, and we have sustainability, communication, right? So all this function supposed to enhance what company offers, improve performance for their customer, and make it more affordable and valuable. So this is the ultimate purpose of having all this function and to do the collective job for the company to be successful. So, and that's one reflection one, yeah. Reflection two is, and I think all of us probably start to read many articles around the climate related risks start to be super visible now. And the big impact too actually is the insurance industry. And quite a major insurer is having a difficult to insure the climate related risk, and it's a big capital challenges because it's a big money involved. So for many industry, actually, they already have risk here and now, and they are already material. So these two actually make me to think that cost and sustainability should not be treated as opposing forces. In many ways, they are one for each other or part of each other already. And and also sustainability shouldn't be the goal. The goal is the company. They have the offer, they have a portfolio, they improve the performance to their customer, and they are successful. So the sustainability is not the goal. Is a I would say it's a strategic pathway or strategic tools for business success. And then there's a product design, there's marketing, there's supply chain. It's the same, right? So we probably, I would believe we should treat sustainability the same way as we treat AI investment, automation investment, like new product development investment, right? So that would probably feel easier or better. I hope for those owner of the business when making such a decision. So yeah, I would say if organization align on these foundations, fundamental thinkings, I think the perceived tension between cost and sustainability would disappear, would largely disappear at least. Because at its core, right, I think the business exists to meet customers' needs. If you could translate sustainability in what way fit your customer needs, and then you would strive. Customer probably don't need to know so much about detail technically how you do sustainability, right? Customer will receive the result. the customer in the market. And sustainability is one of the ways to thrive your business. So it's kind of a little bit relationship that I want to speak in this topic.
Well, they're good reflections
Mhm.
because I think we're kind of saying that they need to be as important as every other business area that's on the boardroom agenda.
Mm,
And in some companies, that's more so, and in some, it's less so. But I think you're also talking about a repositioning of it, and ultimately, it's a customer benefit as
mm.
well. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that
thank you.
perspective. Could I go back to? I was just thinking about what we were talking about earlier as well, as you were talking there about the Institute of Future Studies and the work that you're doing there with the institute, particularly
Mhm.
for Chinese companies. Okay,
Mm,
because I know you're doing a bit of work in this area, aren't you? In terms of how this wider strategic foresight could actually help manufacturers to reshape their own future, and also Chinese manufacturers to reshape
mm,
their own future.
mm,
What are your thoughts
mm.
on that topic?
Yeah, I could tell you, like last week, the Friday just past 30th, we had the first webinar with thieves and with the Chinese manufacturer in my network, and it's a closed invitation webinar. So I would say that my intention started from that I work with so many of them. I actually came working very close with them when I was working with IKEA. So I know so many of them manufacturers, and I would say the life of those corporate of those business were relatively easy. How to say that? The future is relatively clear for them if we talk about 20 years back. So what they need to do is make sure their product is good enough, their service is good enough, and they're very competitive in many ways. So the future somehow seems so clear, and they're just have to work on their internal operation. And it changed from COVID time up to now. Even you have a great product, even you have great service, operations, manufacturing, you have lean production, Six Sigma, whatever, and you still would not be good enough in the choice of the buyers because tariff, because the transportation globally, you might be the late ones. If you have to transport from the ocean, suddenly you don't have the competitiveness, right? Suddenly you are not reliable anymore. So there are so many situations happening around them that made them start to lose that competitive edge compared with many years before. So, and those owners of those manufacturers, they suddenly need to navigate their future. And unfortunately, not many of them have built the muscle because they don't need them. They don't have the muscle, and now they need to use the muscle to see the future for themselves. There's no such a set future, and they have only one pathway to there. So then I would say the thieves is very good methodology, and they do have the proven track record in other part of the world. And I really want to bridge the thieves to the China manufacturer market to help the people to navigate, especially decision maker. Most of the case is the owner or founder or the second generations. Yeah, probably some of them are CEO driven, but to build their internal strategic foresight muscle and very much say the scenario in the future, lens of the future by understanding the mega trend, by understanding a much longer view that they couldn't see by themselves. So yeah, and my ambition is to continue, arrange the webinar to approach to the educational institution, but also the commercial sectors and the manufacturers to see how we can turn this with um, effective service, effective offers for the manufacturer in China. and then they will be driving or navigate their future with much more solid, with solid knowledge or capability, internally.
Do you feel, Yuanyuan, that the perception of Chinese manufacturing is changing, post-COVID to where we are now in the global tariff world? Do you think it's changing, particularly maybe around Europe, for example, or not?
You mean perception to tariff or perception to what?
To working with Chinese, to working more closely with Chinese manufacturers.
So your question is
There's a
whose
question. There was a
perception?
question around. Let me rephrase the question. Do you think that the global perception of working closer with China is changing at the moment? Do you feel it's the same? Because we hear arguments about jobs, we hear arguments about competition, we hear tariff threats. Do you think the landscape and the perception of manufacturing in China is changing post-COVID?
It's changed. It's not same. 100% it's not same. But also it's not kind of generally speaking like it's changed, because for certain sector, the direction is actually more into China. For certain sectors, direction is China plus one. Bob's idea, right? Especially those sector are more like traditional manufacturing sectors, when the tariffs hit much badly for being domestic manufacturer. Then, of course, there is a China plus one strategy applies to China manufacturer. That is big changes. I think they will continue carry out. But for some new sectors like bioscience and advanced manufacture, AI, and automotive EV, and those new industry, they're not existing 20 years before, kind of majorly, and they actually are attracting the externals to China. Yeah. For example, I'm working with Shenzhen. I don't know if I will check if I should have put it in public. I will tell you later. But I'm working with the city Shenzhen. There is a major city in China, in Guangdong province. And the Shenzhen city strategically, from the government, have a strategy of gender of build the huge scientific or industry driven like kind of city that they attract the startups, researchers, also advanced manufacture into this, and they are bioscience, medical devices, AI, advanced manufacture, and advanced material related generally. And it's quite successful so far. And it's great attention is happening in Europe, and they are really, building the bridges of exchange the resources, and also actually help those startups to meet the market of China. And it's quite a huge possibilities, I would say, for many startups in Europe. Yeah, so it's change 100%. It's very and then it's a matter of which sectors in what direction of the change.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that insight. And I think one statistic that stood out to me, which is kind of manufacturing related, but was that in the last 12 months, foreign card payments via WeChat, for example, were up 100% year on year. I don't know if you saw that stat. And duty-free sales were up 600%, which I thought was staggering, because people may have come to China for the experience, the culture, the food, to experience China.
Mm-hmm.
But they more and more seem to be coming to shop for Chinese brands to experience that. They come specifically for whether it's duty-free deals on Chinese products or not, but also, I suppose, big manufacturing like BYD, for example, outselling Tesla, And I see more BYDs on the street now in Europe than I do Teslas, you know? So there is a sort of a global branding, if you like, isn't there, that's taking place. And as
Yeah.
you say, it's not changing, it's changed, I suppose, is where
It
we're at.
it is changed.
Yeah.
It's changing and it's changed.
Mm,
And as you say that, actually one of the things I forgot to mention, actually, you reminded me that part of those manufacturers who were producing the product for the European market or US market, and some of them they are now entering to their own branding build. So
mm.
they have technology, they have the capability, they have the manufacturer. Now they are entering into the brand building journey. So, and then some of them, they are quite successful. But of course, they haven't started since only COVID years, but it's already been kind of a plan. But the COVID years after that is really triggered. And some of these manufacturers, they choose the pathway to branding themselves, become independent branding, and then they still do the white label, yes, but then they have more diversified approach for their future. In this case, they choose to have the multiple future scenarios to to also make a better business. In general, the existing pool, if we say like, the existing pool is become so limited, yeah, the size of the, let's say, customer in the more in the market. So all the manufacturer also needs to think how they can build new revenue. Existing revenue is hard to to keep it, even getting less. So new revenue, that's a lot of discussion happening for the founders. What is my new revenue? Right. And the new revenue, some of the comes from their self-branding, yeah, and build their own brand and start to enter into a, kind of brand related business development.
Excellent
That's,
points. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
thank you for adding that insight. It's very helpful.
Mhm.
I've got one final question for you. Um,
Sure.
and I wanted to come back to maybe helping people, a little takeaway for them, because for many, in leadership positions or working in this new global environment we all find ourselves in, you're often navigating very complex transformations. We've mentioned quite a few of them here today. What
Hmm.
about your sort of parting advice for people who, they want to stay adaptable, but they want to be purpose driven in
Yeah.
this, let's call it a complex time that we're living in? Lots of
Mhm.
opportunity and lots of challenges. So, any sort of takeaway advice for people who need to stay adaptable, stay purpose driven, and build
Mhm.
those extra revenues? Look at the new business opportunities that are happening
Yeah.
in the global market.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I've been talking about this sentence recently very often with people, right? So it's a very old saying in China, but involve a very old city in Europe. So I'll tell you now, as all roads leads to Rome. That's our, I don't know when is the China history has come up with this sentence that we have known this since our childhood. All roads leads to Rome. So what is Rome is what? Rome is the purpose and our mission and a vision as individual and business. So, and all roads leads to, because there's no one road, one good road, perfect road. There's always different roads you have to navigate and change, adapt. But the thing is like the Rome needs to be there. The Rome cannot be always changed. That means the purpose, why you exist, if that's a company or business. And and it's also a little bit that the foresight inside of it is that the Rome is the future. You have the Rome, use the Rome to project your contour pathway. And this can help when you navigate or to uncertainties. I want to change this road and that road. It's totally fine. But question would be that how that road leads to the Rome or not? Do you lost your Rome a certain way when you navigate uncertainties? That's question to ask. if the Rome is there, it's like a navigating light on the ocean, right? If you drive a boat that totally lost your directions, you have to look at your light. And any way that you find your way there. And I think that sounds very simple, but I would say also for myself, like an individual, right? Navigating such a complexity of the words from the job, consultancy, and make our life life. So that's also like what to do, what to not do. Is the room, yeah, and ask all the time, where's my room? Do I have a room? Where's my room? That would be really the advice or final words to all of us.
Well, that's a great note to end on. That
Mm.
brings us sadly to the end of our time together today here with Yuanyuan Zheng. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I'm going to invite our audience to um, join me again for some more discussions in future episodes, where once again I'll be talking to interesting people with interesting topics from all around the world. But thank you so much indeed for joining me on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you here on VistaTalks.
Thank you for inviting me, and my maybe pleasure.